Welcome back. You're watching Night Talk. I'm your host this evening, Jerry Bowyer. Glenn Meekum is here of the Glenn Meekum radio program, and Diana Irie, County Commissioner from Washington County, and we're talking about health care. Diana, you said something during the break that I want to come back to, which is that there's something different about the health care issue. It activated people more than other issues have. Why is that?
I think it's because we all see that what's going on with health care could bring socialism to this country. Health care is the first step. And I think that's really what has everybody waking up and getting involved, because they know that that could happen. Health care's first.
Yeah, people are concerned about their own future.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that when you look at breast cancer, colorectal cancer, prostate cancer,
survival rates,
all these, the survival rates in America are much higher than in Canada or Britain or other countries where they've nationalized or socialized medicine.
Right.
All the innovation, drug therapy innovation, surgery, medical device, all the innovation in medical care is in the United States, and maybe a little bit in Singapore.
Right.
But it's where you have competition.
Because there's a U.S. market that you can sell to, and that Singaporeans can sell to. Right.
That's right. And because there's private companies and private hospital organizations and private pharmaceutical companies and independent doctors' practices who don't work for the government. There's innovation coming from all of that. We have a lot of problems in our medical care system, but I think people intuitively know that if you have the government take it over and socialize it, you freeze it. And then we're going to be in a situation, you know, why do all the Canadians, if you get sick in Canada, really sick, not a cold, not strep throat,
you take a trip
when you get
south.
cancer, you come to Buffalo, you come to Pittsburgh, you come to Minneapolis, you come to Seattle.
Right.
That's what all the Canadians do.
Including some members of Parliament who tried to block health care privatization, who were dead set against the idea of allowing private health care, and then they get some terrible illness and they come to the United States of America.
But this hard left wing, it's always about do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
Always.
Because it's about power.
It's about power for them. It's not about doing right for working people, for regular Americans, for Pennsylvania.
And maybe that's part of the answer to your question about why would someone listen to a leader who isn't telling them the truth. I think in many cases, people will listen to a leader who isn't telling them the truth because sometimes the truth doesn't feel good. Sometimes truth feels bad. Often. There's many situations where the truth feels worse than something that's untrue.
That's true.
And so somebody can tell you things that feel wonderful. They can tell you that there's a perpetual motion machine that will cut healthcare costs, put 50 million people, on the healthcare dole, give you unlimited use of healthcare, but the cost of it will go down. And that's beautiful. If that were a true thing, that would be just so beautiful, right? You can, like the John Lennon song, Imagine.
Right.
The problem is the truth is harsher almost always than the lie, and so people will believe things. But in the case of health care, I think, Diana, you're right. We sort of woke up and said, wait a minute, it's nice to dream a little bit about a world where everyone's equal and, everyone is, we have a collective state where everyone's taking care of everyone else through a benevolent government which will plan everything. But
it's not nice to dream about because that's called totalitarianism.
Right.
And it always, in the 20th century, proved all these Marxist ideas don't work.
Right.
And they always lead, when they're implemented, they always lead to millions of people getting killed.
Right.
That's the hard reality of 20th century history.
Right. But we never did it here. So we never learned directly that painful message. I just interviewed one of the most prominent economists in France, and he said, listen, we're moving towards capitalism because we tried socialism, and it was incredibly painful, so we learned. But you never tried it. So, I mean, for those of you who read books and study what happened around the world and are interested in history, well, yes, you know how painful it is. But for Americans who haven't studied the situations with other nations, we never felt that pain directly. But we're starting to. A 10% unemployment rate, I think, is just a down payment on that level of pain.
Yes.
Very interesting. By the way, the phone number here is 412-333-PCNC. That's 412-333-PCNC if you'd like to join into the conversation. Let's talk a little bit more about the idea that this is not just a public option. This is something, Glenn, that you alluded to. Because the president is saying, well, we just want to create competition by adding an additional option.
But that's just not true. That right now, there's only one industry in America that's more heavily regulated than the medical industry, and that's nuclear power.
Right.
That is the only industry. So medical care, insurance is highly regulated at the state level.
Yes.
If we want to have more, if the president wants to have more competition between insurance companies. It's very, very simple.
Allow interstate competition.
One law through Congress.
Right.
Allow it, blow open these, we have 50 separate insurance markets regulated by state governments and state insurance commissioners.
Yes.
Let me tell you, the state insurance commissioner of Pennsylvania, who is, by the way, a very left-wing Democrat, does not want to give up control of the health insurance market in Pennsylvania.
Right.
And
you can use it for campaign contributions.
Right.
You feel important.
Oh, the government, that's another lie, is that
Perks.
this notion you need a public sector, you need a public option because there are all these for-profit companies. Yeah. Half of the people, almost half of the people, are covered by not-for-profit companies already that basically are owned by the state.
Yeah.
Most Blue Cross Blue Shields are controlled and, in fact, owned by the states.
Yeah, yeah.
This is, so it's, if you want to have competition...
The thing about the competition argument is it's very strange because what the advocates of national health care are saying is in order to get competition, we need to add one player to each market. Now, most healthcare markets have one or two dominant players. So they're saying let's go from 2 to 3, which doesn't bring a lot of competition at all. But if they got rid of these interstate healthcare barriers, which probably are unconstitutional. I mean, they're probably protectionism.
I don't know how it survives so long.
Yeah, maybe someone needs to bring the lawsuit. But if you do that, you bring in 50 competitors. So how in the world can they argue that bringing in one additional competitor is pro-competitive, but bringing in 50 competitors is not pro-competitive? It's a really bizarre argument.
Look at the cash for clunkers. Cash for clunkers, a lot of people liked it because they got $4,500 off the cost of a car.
Right.
But you look at I talked to a car dealer just the other night.
Yeah.
They still haven't gotten paid.
Yes.
Why? Because the government's so bad at claims processing.
Yes.
And medical care is claims processing.
And you know what? The cars, they can't get them into the lots because people who own junkyards don't want the cars because the most profitable thing about a junked car is to sell the engine, but they destroy the engines, so these cars are basically backed up. They can't get it. Now, that's cars. What if that were humans? What if that were me, you, our kids who were sick, backed up with doctors who can't get paid? I think Cash for Clunkers was wonderful in the sense of it was a wonderful object lesson on the eve of nationalizing health care and how incompetent government is at handling cars and checks.
Right. The only way governments anywhere in the world can compete against people, owners with a profit motive, who really have an incentive to be efficient and to actually provide a great service, who are judged in the marketplace. A government entity doesn't have to compete in the marketplace. It doesn't have to provide good service to customers. A private business will die. It will go away if customers aren't willing to pay.
Yes.
Not with tax money, but not with money taken from them, but with money they voluntarily.
But a government program that fails gets more money.
Right. A government program that fails gets more money.
Right.
I have friends who work for the Postal Service. The Postal Service provides a good service to our economy. I don't want to be accused of being too critical, but President Obama himself said the Postal Service wasn't very efficient compared to FedEx or UPS.
Yeah.
So how can he then say that a government-provided system is going to be more efficient than a private system? I mean, the reason why people
can say anything.
The reason why people
the question is whether he can say it. The question is whether we'll believe it. Tell you, hold the thought. I want to come back on something that's been pretty explosive in this conversation. It started with a phrase on Facebook from Sarah Palin. The phrase is death panels. It's been ridiculed a lot. Maybe it's a little, harsh way of putting it. But are there end-of-life issues? Are there issues regarding termination of life before necessary or wise through a state decision not to fund a medical procedure? Are there issues about euthanasia that we need to look at in this legislation? I think so, and we're going to talk about them in just a moment on Night Talk. We'll be right back.